Welcome to our Facebook and Instagram Live Thursday. Happy to be here with you. And today we are talking about one of my most favorite things to talk about. So we are talking about how you can actually move from people pleasing to putting yourself first. Oops, my phone just fell. How you can move to putting yourself first. And if this is something that feels a bit confrontational to you, this idea that you can put yourself first, you're in the right place. So one of the things I hear really often is that, there's a fear of being selfish. There is an experience of feeling guilty. And there's also a feeling of not believing that we are worthy or that we are deserving of putting ourselves first. And what also happens is when we have connected our self-worth and our value with what we do in the world, specifically what we do for others, we have entwined our self-worth and value with what we achieve, what we produce, what we do. There's a way that we have actually put our worth and value in someone else's wagon. We're letting someone else be the determiner of our worth and our value. And this is a really precarious position to put ourselves in. So when we're able to move from people pleasing to putting ourselves first, this is the way we begin to anchor in this experience of knowing we are worthy of living the life we desire and living life on our own terms. And that's really what I'm wanting to support you with today. So, if you relate to being other referenced, and by this I mean if you relate to always checking what's happening with other people before you know what's happening with you, if you are looking to others to regulate you emotionally, if you're in that loop in your head of what do I need to do or say to make everything be okay, if you believe that harmony at all cost is the goal of relationship, then I'm so glad you're here, because harmony is not the goal. Harmony is not the goal. Harmony at all cost comes at a really high cost, and it comes at a high cost to us. So what I want you to know is that when we begin to take our attention off of others and put the attention back on ourselves, it first of all allows us to see where someone else ends and we begin. So in other words, this is a way we can start to identify for ourselves what our boundaries are, what our limits are. So the way I define boundaries is simply our limits around what we will or will not do, will or will not tolerate, and will or will not accept. And from there, we can begin to make healthy choices and take healthy action to ensure that we're living life on our own terms. So I see Mia Bella Muse said, OMG, so needed to hear this today. I'm so glad. I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled that you're here and that you're able to hear this. Good. Thank you. Hi, Kyle. Welcome. I'm seeing all of you. Welcome. So happy that you're here. Hi, Janice. So again, when we're in the mindset of having our antenna outward on others, it can often present as some version of what do they think? What do they feel? What do they need? What do they want? And then what happens is we are in reaction mode and we are not in our own organic agency. We are reacting to something outside of us. So the invitation here is to turn the attention inward. When that pull outward is happening, the the invitation is to go inward, to ask yourself those questions. What do I think? What do I feel? What do I want? What do I need? And I see Mia says, yes, divorce issues, my love. I feel you. And if there has been a lot of codependency in the divorce, in the marriage or the divorce, if there's, if there's a lot of protecting the partner, this this is even more vital for you. It's even more vital for you to be able to really look at what you can do to keep the attention on yourself. Now, I want to be really clear. This is not about disregarding others. This is not about disrespecting others. This is not about ignoring others. It's simply about bringing yourself into the conversation and giving yourself a seat at the table. And not only a seat at the table, but a seat at the head of the table. If you're not willing to take a stand for living life on your own terms, how are you expecting that to happen? So when I talk about moving from people pleasing to putting yourself first, what often begins to come up, as I mentioned earlier, is this idea of, well, isn't that selfish? And I'm here to tell you, yes, it is. And there is nothing wrong with selfishness. Now, here's the deal. So many of us have spent so much of our lives disowning selfish. We think being selfish is the worst thing that we could be called. But I want you to look at this from a different lens. When we deny our selfishness, we tend to praise our selflessness. And in selfless, we disappear, we vanish. So it's not about either or. It's not about selfish or selfless. It's about the capacity to be both when we are being called upon to activate one of these qualities. So there is a time to be selfless and there is a time to be selfish. So instead of looking at these qualities as having a negative or positive charge, I want to support you in remembering that these qualities actually have no charge. They're neutral. We put the spin on them. So if you have a negative connotation of selfish, I want to help you reframe it, because I look at selfish, self-love, and self-care as being three sisters whose job it is to support us in honoring ourselves. So it's really essential that we allow our selfishness to be present. And it can live right alongside the selflessness, but not at the expense of it. So I see that Mia Bella, you said, you're so insightful because that's where I'm at, trying to put my empathetic self aside for myself with love and respect to others. I've been where you are. I've really been where you are. So I get it. And in fact, it's something I write about in every single one of my books. So you could literally pick up any one of my books and they could support you right now. But since you're going through a divorce, I would actually say Jump in Your Life Will Appear, if you haven't read that yet, would be the book for you to start with, because it's specifically anchored in my own story as the through line of going through divorce. But it's really about how to make any kind of major change inch by inch. So I hope that you'll check that out. I'm just letting you all know that I am noticing that for some reason, and I don't exactly know what happened on my Facebook, but I'm not able to see your comments for some reason. I'm going to see if I can try to, but for some reason I'm not able to. But I can definitely see that you're here, and I can definitely see. Let me see if this will go. Nope. I can see that you're here. And I appreciate you being here, and I will go back and read the comments on Facebook afterwards. But for some reason, I don't know, I must have hit a button and I'm not seeing them. Uh, so, the other pieces that I often hear is I feel guilty. I feel guilty if I put myself first. And here's what I want you to know about that. And this is a really big reframe on guilt for you. If you feel guilty taking care of your own needs, if you feel guilty honoring yourself, guilt is simply an indicator that you're on the right track. Guilt is sending you the message that you are making a major change by taking yourself into account. So just breathe that in because I know that this is a really big turnaround for people. This is a really big, this is a really big shift in mindset because we're generally so used to associating guilt with something quote unquote bad. But in this case, guilt is good. Guilt is telling you you're on the right track. So, the 3 steps I really encourage you to begin embracing as you are on this journey of moving from people pleasing to putting yourself first is giving yourself permission to consider your own needs at least as much as you're considering the needs of others. And just notice what happens in your body as I said that. Give yourself permission to consider your own needs at least as much as you consider the needs of others. I mean, if you really look at the way you're considering everyone else's needs and the way that you are willing to tamp down your own, sublimate your own in order to serve everyone else, you should at least be willing to consider your needs at least as much. The second step here is to give yourself permission to consider your needs even more than you're considering the needs of others. Consider what you need even more. And then the third step here, and this is really the boundary ninja move, is give yourself permission to consider your needs first before you consider the needs of others. And again, just breathe if this is feeling really confronting and notice what's coming up for you. And notice if the first thing that comes up is, what will they think? Notice if your first thoughts go outside of you instead of what I want to support you in cultivating is seeing how if I'm willing to put my needs first, how much more am I able to experience? How much more am I able to do? What am I able to feel? So it's, again, not about not considering the needs of others. It's not about ignoring the needs of others. It's not an either or, it is a both and. You can consider your own needs and you can also consider the needs of others, but the invitation here is to consider yourself first. So, one of the ways that we can put this into practice, and I invite you to put this into practice today, is really getting clear on what is a yes for you and what is a no. And if you are like most of us, you have experienced at some point in your life the discomfort of saying no. And here's what I want you to really understand. When you say no to something external, you are saying yes to you. When you say yes to something that you don't want to do, you are betraying yourself. And you are ultimately betraying and being dishonest with the person you're saying yes to. So when a direct request comes in, I invite you to take a pause, to really consider, is this a yes or is this a no? Instead of going into the knee-jerk yes that so many of us are familiar with. We all know what it's like to have a request come in, we say yes, and then within seconds we're thinking, how the hell am I going to get out of this? So the way to have that not happen moving forward is to really get clear on your yeses and your nos. And one of the ways to do this is to really look at what's the underlying motivation for your yes. Is the yes coming from a place of obligation, or coming from responsibility, or because you don't want someone to be angry or disappointed? Is the yes coming from a place of wanting to be seen as the hero and the rescuer and the savior? Is the yes coming from any of those places? Because if the yes is coming from any of those places, it's actually a no. A yes should only come from desire. We can't make people happy. We can't make people mad. The way someone chooses to respond to our truth is not our responsibility to manage. So one of the ways we cross our own boundaries is crossing that threshold into the territory of someone else and getting in there to meddle so that we can try to manage their experience or their emotions. That's not our responsibility. So part of being able to move from people pleaser to putting yourself first is to stay on your side, stay in your own territory. Don't take more responsibility than is yours to take. So part of being able to say no is getting really clear on what's a yes to you, and then being able to offer no with grace and gratitude instead of excuses and apologies. So we don't need to make excuses for what's true for us. And we can simply create a way to let someone know the answer is no by saying, thanks so much for thinking of me. I'm not available for this. Or I appreciate the invitation. I'm not going to make it. Or whatever it might be. But so many of us have this, again, another kind of knee-jerk reaction to feeling like we have to make up a song and a dance or a story or an excuse. I've even had people say to me, I want to say no. You know, I've been coaching clients who say, I want to say no to my friend, but I don't have a good reason to say no. We don't need a reason to honor our truth. You don't need to give anyone a reason when you say no. You can allow your no to stand on its own. And, you know, part of what happens here is we're so used to taking the hit internally. So we want to avoid conflict externally. And when we avoid conflict externally, we create more conflict internally. And we're so used to taking the hit, we're so used to living with our own discomfort or disappointment, and we wouldn't want anyone outside of us to feel that discomfort or disappointment. So we just keep bearing. Just keep bearing the hit, and it's all happening inside of us. It's all happening inside of us. And it got me thinking, and I'm going to share something with you this morning. This is, I'm surprised I'm doing this, but I'm in the moment and I'm in the zone and I'm going to share it with you. This morning, I do a writing practice every morning. And this morning I was writing, and very rarely does a poem just come out of me. I tend to be someone who, writes and then sort of will patchwork together things into a poem. But once in a while it happens that a whole poem just comes out whole and complete. So I wrote a poem this morning, and it's actually very much about this, very much. So I thought I thought that I would share this poem with you on our live this morning. Some of you might know that I I am a poet. I have a master's in poetry. My first book, Writing for My Life, is a collection of my poems. And so I thought I would for on this live just share this poem with you, since it really resonates with what we're exploring today. So this poem is called It Seems So Small. It seems so small at first, saying yes when you want to say no. You feel it immediately as it happens. Something inside of you begins to deflate as the desperation to free yourself of the commitment you made rises. It seems so small at first, allowing yes to be a one-word answer, but believing no cannot stand on its own. So you embellish no with a story, a reason or excuse, a rationalization or a justification. You don't think your no is brave enough to stand on its own like your yes. So you dress up your no, sometimes with extravagance, other times with armor, to hide the truth of not wanting. It seems so small at first, saying yes out loud when your whole body is screaming no. Have you ever considered when you began abandoning your body? It seems so small at first, betraying your body and the wisdom it holds. What if you could actually see pieces of you disintegrating in real time? Each time you took action against it, your body would begin disappearing slowly, almost invisibly at first, with the tip of your left pinky toe. And over time, the parts of you really need dissolve. If you could literally see it instead of just feel it, would you pay attention then and honor yourself? So thank you for letting me share that. I wrote it this morning. It came out whole, and it was so in line with what we're talking about today. So I really wanted to share it with you. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So, we're going to wrap up here, but my invitation to you is to pay attention to your yeses and your nos. That's what's going to support you in moving from people pleasing to putting yourself first at the ground level. Someone else's urgency is not yours. So if someone makes a request of you and you're not ready to give an answer, take your time. If you're ready to say no, say no. If you're not ready to say no, you can simply say, I'll get back to you. You don't have to ask for permission to get back to them. You can just simply let them know, I'll get back to you. So this is your practice this week. This is your practice. Really allow yourself to determine those parts of you that are yeses and nos. And this last part of the poem that I shared with you, what if you could see yourself disintegrating and disappearing instead of just feeling it inside? Would that make a difference to you? Because the truth is, it's happening whether you see it or not. And you also have the power to reinvent and rebuild and replenish and restore. All right, my loves, so happy to be here with you today. Thanks for being with me, and I will be here again with you next week.